Operation Epic Fury.
Iran chest-thumped, fired at a ship, launched missiles towards Kuwait and Bahrain, and then Donald Trump hit send on the line that cracked the whole story open. Iran has requested a meeting. It will take place tomorrow in Doha. And that's the humiliating detail the media class can't spin away. A regime that violated the ceasefire, a regime that tested Trump, a regime that got smacked back. Then came crawling back to the table on America's terms, and Trump twisted the knife with another warning after Iran took actually 4 shots at a ship. We knocked down 3. His answer? Well, you're going to find out. And this matters because the Strait of Hormuz is not an abstract foreign policy seminar for think tank frauds in Washington. It's a choke point that hits your wallet, your military, and America's standing all at once. When the Iranian regime attacks commercial vessels, it tries to tax the world economy by force, and that drives energy panic, spikes costs, and dares the United States to act weak. Barack Obama's failed Iran framework trained these thugs to believe America would absorb the hit, issue a memo, and beg for another photo op. Well, Donald Trump shattered that rotten script. Iran fired drones at shipping. Trump's military hammered 10 Iranian military targets near the Strait of Hormuz. Iran then launched missiles and drones towards U.S. bases in Kuwait and Bahrain. And CENTCOM still has 50,000 plus troops on high alert because Trump takes American life seriously. Nikki Haley's UN successor made it plain. 143 nations back the U.S. position against Iran's illegal shakedown. That isolation matters, and so does the money. Kevin Hassett says that once traffic gets back above 100 ships a day, prices can drop even below pre-conflict levels. Strength keeps oil moving. Weakness gets people killed and robs families at the pump. When Tehran fires 4 shots at a ship and Trump knocks down 3, I want the same thing in my own life, results and not excuses. After trying hundreds of supplements, only C60 Evo gave me that. My brain fog gone, joint pain virtually eliminated. My wife's skin looks 10 years younger, and my energy feels 20 years younger. More energy, clearer thinking, better skin. You feel young again. C60 Evo is a Nobel Prize-winning molecule, not just another antioxidant. It works at the cellular level where aging actually happens. And the Paris study showed the longest life extension in history. Lab animals live 90% longer. It's 172 times more powerful than vitamin C and worth more than gold per ounce, and made since 1991 in a Houston lab. Get exclusive savings at c60evo.com/NNN. Use code NNN at checkout because strength works. Now, one detail the appeasers keep sliding past because it wrecks their whole sermon. Trump did not chase Iran into Doha after absorbing a blow. Iran requested the meeting after U.S. forces blasted 10 targets and after Tehran's tantrum at sea blew up in its face. That sequence matters: cause, effect, and force, and then compliance. In a minute, I'm going to show you all the reactions, and because the country understands something the foreign policy priesthood still refuses to learn. Donald Trump's patience has a blade in it. So we have this from Reuters. Iran said it launched missile and drone strikes on U.S. bases in Kuwait, escalating tensions days after both sides agreed to interim deal to end the conflict. Let me just check the audio on that clip. 1 second. It was working a minute ago. Okay, my bad.
Said to show damage to a residential building hit by an Iranian drone. A U.S. official confirmed Iranian attack. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps released video on Sunday showing what state television claimed were fresh missile strikes on U.S. bases in Kuwait and Bahrain. Washington and Tehran traded fire and further threats over the weekend in the most significant escalation since both sides agreed to a 14-point memorandum aimed at ending the armed conflict. Photographs released by Bahrain's police were said to show damage to a residential building hit by an Iranian drone. A U.S. official confirmed Iranian attacks on U.S. facilities and told Reuters there were no reported U.S. casualties or major damage to U.S. sites. U.S. President Donald Trump wrote on social media that, quote, there may come a point when we are no longer able to be reasonable and will be forced to militarily complete the job that we very successfully started. If that happens, he wrote, the Islamic Republic of Iran will no longer exist. The conflict began when the U.S. and Israel jointly attacked Iran at the end of February. Iran responded by firing drones and rockets at Israel and at Gulf nations hosting American.
So after the Iranian strikes on U.S. bases, CENTCOM not blinking. Now, this map tells the story. More than 50,000 American troops are on high alert. CENTCOM keeping 50,000 troops on high alert in the Middle East. This comes after Iran says preparations for U.S. talks in Doha have not yet started. The playbook remains the same: military pressure, diplomacy in parallel as tensions heat up. So even with the massive U.S. force posture, the regime's still playing games on negotiation. Fox picks up the next piece. The guns are quiet for now, but Trump's team says the real mission is keeping the Strait of Hormuz open while nuclear talks move ahead.
Right now, all is quiet after two exchanges of fire between the United States and Iran over the weekend. U.S. officials say technical talks will move forward as planned. This all started late last week when the Iranians launched attacks on shipping vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, firing one-way attack drones at those ships. The U.S. responded with strikes in southwestern Iran. Well, when the Iranians attacked yet another oil tanker, the U.S. ramped up those strikes, going after Iranian military surveillance infrastructure, communication systems, air defense sites, drone storage facilities, and mine-laying capabilities. In response, Iran launched missiles and drones toward Kuwait and Bahrain early Sunday. The goal here for the Trump administration, in short, keep the Strait of Hormuz open and safe. But this week, those more detailed discussions on Iran's nuclear program will proceed.
The president's patience isn't going to last forever. Discussions are ongoing, particularly at a technical level of how to get inspectors in, the downblending and the other pieces that are focused on ensuring Iran never has a nuclear weapon. But they need to understand their leverage is diminishing by the day. Iran has a choice to make. It's going to be a responsible nation, or it can continue down this path to absolute ruin.
So you heard the diplomatic line, but Trump backed it with hard power. Next, watch the strike footage itself as the U.S. military hits 10 Iranian targets tied to attacks on shipping near Hormuz. This is U.S. military footage from CENTCOM. 10 targets. Take a look at this. Unclassified footage of some of these hits from President Trump, U.S. military. Here's another one. Wow. FAFO. When are these guys going to learn? Unbelievable. So the blast or the message Tehran was meant to understand, then President Trump puts it even plainer from the Oval. Iran took a shot at a ship, and now you're going to find out what comes next.
You said that Iran violated the ceasefire.
Yeah,
will they face any consequences?
Well, you'll find out.
Do you consider the ceasefire to still be in place?
I don't like the fact that they took a shot yesterday, actually 4, we knocked down 3, at a ship. Not an allied ship, but a ship, a very expensive ship. And it was fine, but it took a little beating. They shouldn't be doing that, so you'll find out.
Will the U.S.
You'll find out.
Will the
exactly.
U.S. respond? What is your message to
Will
Iran?
I respond? You're going to find out.
Sir, why do you think they did that if the talks, you've said repeatedly they're going well? What do you think the motivation is for attacking the ship?
They're a little bit different. That's why I think of it. 47 years, no president did what we're doing. So you just asked a question, you'll find out.
You will find out. So Trump's warning wasn't some empty beltway talking point. Up next, UN ambassador makes the case that Iran is isolated. Any attack on international shipping will be answered with force.
The Iranian regime thinks for a second that President Trump is going to stand by, while Iran continues to attack international shipping without a response, or our bases without a response. They're sadly mistaken, and they saw that loud and clear over the last few nights, where we'll continue to militarily, if needed, take down their infrastructure that they're trying to use to illegally control an international waterway. And Shannon, just one more point on that. That's not just the United States. That's the entire international community. A UN record, 143 nations have agreed with us that this is in violation of international law. Even the Chinese government has said you cannot be taking tolls or fees. Iran was apparently relying on Oman across the waterway to help it set up this new infrastructure. And now Oman just yesterday has rejected the idea of tolls or fees. So they're completely isolated here. President Trump's not going to stand for it. And meanwhile, we continue to move ships out by the dozens every day. And world oil prices are not just stable, they're dropping. So Iran's attempt to hold the world hostage and their economies hostage are completely failing.
So that was the administration's public warning to the regime. Now comes the next key reveal. According to President Trump, Iran blinked and requested a meeting. This from the White House. Iran requests meeting in Doha. It will take place tomorrow. So after the strikes and the tough talk, Iran is on the side asking for a sit-down. Next, Caroline Levitt confirms who's headed to Doha. It makes one thing clear: violence will be met with violence.
Well, I just spoke with the president about it. Iran has requested a meeting this week, so Special Envoy Witkoff and Jared Kushner will be flying to Doha for high-level meetings this week as we continue to discuss the memorandum of understanding. On the sidelines of those high-level talks will be the technical talks. So as far as we're concerned, we're holding up our end of the ceasefire. Violence will be met with violence. As you mentioned, Brian, there were attacks on commercial vessels that the United States of America, directed by the president, responded to, and that will continue to happen, but we hope we don't see that. The president obviously wants to see the peace process play out, and the Iranians would be best to sign a good deal with the United States of America because the president has proven he's unafraid to use the might of our military. Look at Operation Midnight Hammer. Look at Operation Epic Fury. Either way, though, the United States of America wins. If the peace process plays, this MOU continues, gas prices will continue to tumble. We're seeing crude is lower than it was prior to the start of this excursion, as the president calls it. Or if Iran chooses to be a bad actor, they'll prove themselves to be the pariah of the Middle East. They've totally alienated themselves from their Gulf and Arab partners in the region. And the United States of America has the best and strongest military in the world. The president retains the right to use it. But again, the memorandum of understanding will continue to be discussed. The ceasefire is in place, and we hope that we can get to a good deal. The president will sign one that puts our nation's interests first.
So Levitt says the U.S. is holding the line while the talks continue in Doha. Kevin Hassett explains the economic payoff.
We've got pipelines in Saudi Arabia and UAE that before the war were operating really below capacity. And because the straits were closed, then they've come up with ways to operate closer to capacity. There's been a big drawdown in inventories globally. And so I think that basically once traffic is really moving, we go back to more than 100 ships a day, then you're going to see prices even come down from there because there's going to be so much oil pouring out. And so, in the meantime, right now we've got the memorandum of understanding. We've got, Vice President is on the case, and the President has said that we're going to have some more talks tomorrow. My view is that what's going to happen between now and the 60-day memorandum of understanding discussion is that they'll be testing the resolve of the President now and then. And nobody should ever try to test the resolve of Donald Trump. And there was a little bit of a test this week. And of course, he delivered, a pushback that has the back of the table. And the bottom line, the macro picture is that the straits are going to be open. Iran's not going to have a nuclear weapon. And the global oil market is going to be safer. And there's going to be more oil than you've ever seen before. And risk premia in the Middle East will go down because of the peace that President Trump has negotiated.
So that's the part the media hates admitting. Strength overseas can hit prices here at home. Next, Trump turns to the pump, warning gas stations and oil giants not to gouge Americans as crude keeps falling. The president directed all Americans to report gas station price gouging to officials after he noticed that crude oil is crashing. President Trump says WTI crude $69 and heading down. This is less than it was prior to the start of the denuclearization of Iran. Gas prices coming down fast. Report any abuses at the retail level. If you recall, he had these remarks in the Oval just last week.
Your Department of Justice to do an investigation for oil companies that you said gas prices were not coming down quick enough.
That's right.
You are concerned that there is price gouging going on, taking advantage of the crisis. Sir, can you elaborate on that?
So it's ExxonMobil, it's Chevron, it's Shell, it's BP, it's a lot of them. The gasoline or the oil prices have come down so much, and we are not seeing anything at the pump by comparison to what it should be. We should be, in my opinion, at $2.25 right now at the pump. And we're higher than that. And we are doing a big investigation on it. Yeah, they're not reducing the prices commensurate with what's happening. Look, we are sending out, think of it, 19 million barrels came out yesterday. That is a flood. That's like a gusher. That's an oil gusher. And they should be much lower, the gasoline prices, which really is what people see more than anything else, but for their car. But the gasoline prices should be much lower at the pump. And the oil companies are possibly gouging. I hope they're not, otherwise they're going to be in big trouble. They're going to be in big trouble. We're not going to play games.
Mr. President, you spoke to President.
We are not going to play games after calling out price gouging and hammering home lower energy costs. Trump sums up the broader fight in one line. Up next, he says the Doha meeting may matter or may not because, in his words, America is already winning militarily.
Well, there'll be a meeting on that tomorrow in Doha, and to go into Qatar. I think they've already left, or they're just about getting ready to leave. So we'll see how that goes. But we're doing very well on that front. But the meeting in Doha is going to be perhaps important, perhaps not. We're going to find out. But we're winning militarily. It's almost won militarily, I would say. And it's really very simple. It's the denuclearization of Iran. We don't want them to have a nuclear weapon, and they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. And they've agreed to that, in all fairness. This is.
So the climax sits right there in black and white, all caps from President Donald J. Trump himself. Iran has requested a meeting. It will take place tomorrow in Doha. Not America begging, not Marco Rubio floating concern, not some State Department weakling leaking process. Iran requested it after firing its shipping, after launching towards Kuwait and Bahrain, after getting its military infrastructure ripped apart near the Strait of Hormuz. See, that's the verdict on the Iranian regime and on every establishment fraud who preached that pressure would fail. Trump kept the ceasefire on America's side, answered violence with violence, and forced the regime to choose between more pain and a humiliating fight back to the table. They blinked, and he didn't. So here is the takeaway. Donald Trump just gave the world a clean lesson in how peace actually works. You do not preserve shipping lanes by begging pirates. You do not protect U.S. troops by workshopping adjectives on cable news. You do not lower gas prices by letting jihadist fanatics choke the Strait of Hormuz and then pretending deterrence is impolite. You hit back. You isolate the regime. You keep 50,000 plus troops ready. You hammer 10 targets when the shots start flying. And when crude drops to $69, you turn around and warn oil companies not to gouge the American people on the way down. If Tehran wants Doha, fine, sign a deal on America's terms or face more pain. If Exxon, Shell, or BP drag their feet while prices fall, the Trump administration should scorch them too. Drop your take in the comments if you're done with the appeasers and ready for strength that actually delivers. Iran already got the message. The media class is next. I want to make sure you stay informed. That's why we set up this telephone number. I show it to you every segment. 844-840-4963. Thousands and thousands of patriots have already texted the words raw feed, and they're on the inside track of the news and getting the notifications from me when YouTube never sends them. And let's celebrate some wins by going to the merch shelf below this video or shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now. You know out.